we're in my front yard here, and Dayton wants me to show you. He's using his legs and back to push himself up between those two trees there. You can see he's butts about the height of Alice there. Alice just ran underneath him. Dayton, want to say hi? Ah! Okay, Alice. Jeez. All right. All right. All right. So, I'm on a swing chair. That's why we're kind of spinning and rocking after we got attacked by Alice there. All right. Okay. All right. So here we go. Let's look a little bit. We're gonna look a little bit at FDR. I had a recommendation in the comment section of the last video on Republican motherhood to talk about FDR and the business plot. I will spend a little bit of time on FDR and the business plot here today. But you can look here, FDR and the business plot. We'll spend a little bit of time on this, but we're not going to spend a lot of time on this because this is not as likely to be on the AP exam. You probably don't need this. And then secondly, we'll talk about the court packing plan, which is likely to be something that you'll see in the AP exam. So probably no, more likely. Spend a little bit of time and then a little bit more time on this. But guys, but I had a recommendation to talk about the business plot, FDR. So FDR wins the 1932 election against incumbent President Herbert Hoover. Remember, the economy starts to tank. We're already in the Great Depression. October 1929, you get the whole stock market collapse and then job losses after that. And so the fact of the matter is the economy is not doing well. FDR kind of comes in onto the scene and wins the 1932 election, which means he becomes president at that time in March 1933. Now it's January 20, but the fact of the matter is it actually gets changed in part because of this Great Depression in this era. FDR is going to be the last sworn in March and the first sworn in January. That doesn't matter. But the fact of the matter is, General Smedley Butler, Marine Corps Major General Smedley Butler, alleges that wealthy businessmen and bankers approach him plotting to overthrow FDR and put him temporarily in charge because he was popular with veterans, popular with all sorts of soldiers. And so Smedley Butler is asking... basically, or telling that he's asked to help with this coup, this overthrow, and to kind of put in place almost like a fascist government. And look at what's going on in Europe in 1933 when this plot is alleged to have taken place during FDR's first year in office. You have Francisco Franco, this fascist leader, dictator in Spain. You have Benito Mussolini, fascist dictator in Italy. You have Adolf Hitler, a fascist dictator in Germany. And don't forget, you have Joseph Stalin, a dictator, communist dictator over in the Soviet Union. And so he alleges that this rise of fascism is kind of growing here in America, and people are trying to overthrow FDR. Although he testified in the House of Un-American Activities Committee before Congress, no prosecutions ever resulted of it. Some historians think it was made up and that Butler was just kind of like telling a tall tale to push his political narratives. Other historians think, no, there was truth to this, that it was real. Smedley Butler was a Quaker, even though he had joined the military here. And Quakers at that time, and I think still mostly even today, were preaching kind of pacifism. So it was almost a bit of an oxymoron to have a, quote, fighting Quaker, although the history is full of them in the U.S. military over the years. But Smedley Butler writes this book called War is a Racket. It's raining leaves. Okay, thank you, Alice. All right. Now, don't forget, I'm making a video here. And so the fact of the matter is, is he writes this book, War is a Racket. And in it, he claims that the U.S. fights in many wars and has many interactions, basically to boost Wall Street, to boost businesses, and that this is not okay and a problem. If you ever want to read War is a Racket, it's considered a great American anti-war book. It's for free online if you ever wanted to check it out. Written by Smedley Butler, the guy who alleges that businessmen had approached him and helping to take over the U.S. government, overthrowing FDR in a matter that you would see in Europe at this time. What's going on in Europe. So some people say it's very believable. Some people say it was 100% real. Some people say we don't know. Some people say, it's all made up to push a political narrative. The honest truth is I don't know what the truth is. But a lot of people do believe Smedley Butler there. There he goes. There's Alice climbing up. Now we'll talk about the Supreme Court packing plan. There was, as you can see, some ducks out there in the lake right now. It's probably too hard to tell with my crappy cell phone camera, but there's some ducks out there. There's a whole bunch of them. But all right, so here we go. Let's look at the Supreme Court packing scheme here, guys. All right, so FDR's court packing plan. This is actually considered one of FDR's worst moves as president. In fact, both political parties, major political parties, both the Democrats and Republicans say, FDR, you're going too far. Kind of maybe what you see up in here. But basically, FDR is upset that the Supreme Court has struck down multiple New Deal pieces. Multiple New Deal pieces. The most famous two are the AAA, which deals with like agriculture, trying to like bring prices up for farmers and help out the farmers, and the NRA, which kind of like works on industry and businesses. So the Supreme Court had struck down the AAA in U.S. v. Butler. Basically, they're levying a tax on processors that get paid out to the farmers. The AA was controversial for this reason, other reasons, like paying farmers not to farm, forcing farmers to sell animals to the government, only to have the government shoot and bury the animals, wasting the meat. A lot of farmers oppose that. You also have the NRA, which was unpopular with a lot of business owners because they were kind of pressured or forced into it. A lot of them were. And it kind of like regulated wages, regulated prices, price controls, did a variety of things. And the Supreme Court argues this infringes upon separation of powers here, kind of like what's going on. But to make a long story short, is FDR falsely claims that the Supreme Court is behind on their docket, that they're behind on their docket. And because they're behind on their docket, basically that they need more help. And so he says, for every Supreme Court justice that's 70 or older, I should get to pick a new one, up to 6 new ones total, max. And so the fact of the matter is, the Supreme Court was old, but they weren't behind on their docket. So he does tell a bit of a lie here. And a lot of people see this as kind of like, well, the Supreme Court is there for a reason. It's there as a check and balance so that the president can't get too strong or the legislature can't come up with laws that violate the Constitution. And the Supreme Court's important as this, and in this democracy, as a check and balance. And so a lot of people think, you're going too far, FDR. And this is a huge black eye. In fact, some people even say, look at Europe. This is how the dictators start. They get kind of Hitler had won some elections, and then he slowly starts taking more and more power. No, I'm not saying, and I don't think FDR would have ever tried to go like full-on dictator, but the fact of the matter is, you don't want to eliminate checks and balances for any leader, any president, past, present, or future. And a lot of people are starting to kind of worry about that. Like what are you doing? FDR. Oh, Alice on her scooter. And so So the fact of the matter is, guys, is as this starts to hurt him, FDR ends up dropping this because the Republicans are screaming bloody murder, as they should, and even most people in his own party are saying, this is too far. This is something we can't support. So FDR drops the Judicial Procedures Reform Bill of 1937, the bill proposed to make this happen, the Supreme Court packing plan. And however, the Supreme Court also backs down. The Supreme Court stops being so nitpicky on finding things of his unconstitutional. So he kind of gets his way, even though it doesn't get passed, because the Supreme Court stops kind of going after a lot of his legislation. And much of the parts that are found unconstitutional were later re-implemented, and the Supreme Court upheld them in different legislation later on. One famous example is much that was found illegal in the unconstitutional NRA gets brought back in the National Labor Relations Act of 1935. The very year it gets struck down as unconstitutional, the NRA, parts are brought back in this big bill here, like to protect unions and strengthen unions. And so the fact of the matter is, FDR kind of gets his way, but gets a black eye in the process. And I've told you kids before that the biggest black eye that he kind of gets in office was this Supreme Court packing plan. However, as you can see Dayton working a little bit higher up in the tree there. But one interesting thing, though, is it wasn't as controversial at the time. Certainly with some people. But it wasn't as controversial at the time with many people, was the Japanese internment camps. Today, that is usually considered his biggest black eye when FDR signs Executive Order 9066, enabling the military to do the Japanese internment camps. However, at the time, most people supported that, and the fact of the matter is, the Supreme Court packing scheme was considered his most controversial act of this by his contemporaries in his own era. All right, kids, leave me feedback, give me requests of topics you would like me to recover. This first topic here, the business plot, was by request. I don't think it's likely to be used on the AP exam, but hey, maybe, you never know. With the short responses, who knows? The court packing plan is a little bit more likely. All right, but have a good day. Be safe. Be smart. Kids, have faith. Be smart. You can do it. Have a good day, guys. Oh, wait. One more. Where's the cat? There it. Oh, there's the green cat. Still green. We got to give her a bath. Kids chalk. Made her green. Oh, the worst color. Michigan State. Oh. All right. Have a good day, kids.